Thank you, gentlemen. This is rumor control. Here are the facts.
Every time I leave a comment, some loser who's never had a meaningful woman in his life, or apparently doesn't appreciate the one that gave birth to him, chimes in with some kind of inverse feminist evil that states all women are vile beasts who give nothing to earth and leech off men. This is a movement, right? I'm being told that it's called MGTOW, men going their own way, in which men say that marriage has now become a one-way street. Basically, women get everything out of it, so they're not going to do it.
Well, that didn't work as well as I thought it would. Well, how are we doing, gentlemen? Today, I'm going to dig right into this video that I was made aware of by Andrew Klavan. I am only peripherally aware of Andrew Klavan here. And he just dropped a clip. This is about a 5-minute, maybe a little bit longer than a 5-minute clip from a pre-existing show that he has. And he is a pundit, let's just say, I mean, call a spade a spade, a pundit on the Daily Wire, which of course is sort of a definitely a conservative network, cable network. I don't know, cable, internet network. You can, of course, watch them on Apple TV and everything else. It's a sort of an answer to the need for a conservative network. And you'll find Candace Owens on there. A lot of the clips that I pull from her when I do breakdown videos of her, that's where it comes from the Daily Wire. I will put the video links in today's topic, in today's video, in the description, so you guys can go have a look at that. And so I want to throw out a few standard caveats here before I get started in this. First of all, I don't know Andrew from Adam. I'm sorry. I'm just now meeting you, Andrew. I only, like I said, I'm only peripherally aware of him in the sense that I know that he has done stuff with Ben Shapiro. I know he's been on. I don't know that he's been with Candace Owens. Maybe I know he's one of the guys that Dennis Prager likes to hang out with. Again, now caveats apply. I'm not attacking Andrew Klavan in this video. Not personally, whatever. Okay. I want to clarify things here. That's number one. Whenever I do a breakdown video, whenever I detail things, whenever I have a response or a reaction video, I don't even like to call it a reaction video because it seems like I'm reacting. It's a breakdown so that a more reasonable, the rational male, right? Objective observation of what is being sort of put forth, particularly in this case, we're going to be talking about the TradCon, the traditional conservative side of things, as opposed to, say, the woke side. The woke side is very easy to sort of break down. And a lot of people think that I'm just, yeah, go get them. Well, okay, fine. But whenever I am sort of picking apart someone like Candace Owens, and again, not her personally, just the opinions expressed to educate guys in this sphere, in the manosphere, in the MGTOW sphere, in whatever sphere, whatever we're calling it right now. I don't even know what to call it, the men's sphere, right? Just so that there is a counterbalance to this. And so that's article number one. Article number two is a lot of people are going to presume that because I'm doing this topic that I'm suddenly MGTOW or he's sympathizing with MGTOW. I'm not. I am not a MGTOW. I've never pretended to be a MGTOW. I have stated many times that although I believe that MGTOW and even the black pill and even MRAs and even TradCons and especially PUAs and especially the red pill, whatever we're calling it right now, they get the analysis right. It's the prescription and the solutions that I have a hard time with, or that I fundamentally disagree with in some instances. It's just sort of differences. But there's a lot of crossover. I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of crossover to get to MGTOW, to get to the black pill, to even get to sort of a even a red pill version of traditional conservatism. You have to have at least a red pill understanding. You have to be at least in some way red pill aware. As I've said before, I think the red pill gets co-opted by a lot of different interests who have really no interest or no purpose in actually claiming to be red pill. It just becomes whatever topic du jour that sort of fits their narrative, that suddenly becomes red pill. We're getting to a point right now where red pill is sort of a verb. Right? I got red pilled, man. What red pilled you? It's not a verb. Okay, the red pill is an objective understanding of, in this case, intersexual dynamics, and that's what we're going to get to today. And that's what I cover. I'm not a PUA. I'm not an MRA. I'm not a MGTOW. I'm not black pill. I am not what I'm not your Messiah. Okay, I am not your savior. I'm just here. I just work here, man. I just put up the observations, and I let you guys connect the dots along with me and join the conversation. And that's really where we have to kind of start here. So that's caveat number 2. Caveat number 3 is this: before I dig in, everyone is going to say, well, especially by the end of this one, why is Rollo so against marriage? He's been married for X amount of years. Okay, well, let's clarify things. Come July 20th of this year, I will have been married 25 years. Happily, thank you for all of them. I have a wonderful 23-year-old daughter who is working on her master's degree right now, and graduated magna cum laude from her undergraduate, and is a pageant winner and is a gorgeous, well-adjusted human being, feminine, lovely, loving daughter, despite what a lot of rumors are floating around, courtesy of certain convention proprietors, or soon to be former convention proprietors, would like you to believe. I have been married for quite some time, very happily, and I apply red pill principles, and like I said, I am the game, right? I apply that to my life, and I apply that to my marriage, and I am better off for it. So there you have that. Now, the reason why is Rollo making this a caveat? Well, the reason for that is because the moment I go and I say anything that is in any way unflattering of marriage, particularly in 2021, when we are looking at record low marriage rates, and consequently record low divorce rates too, as a result of that. When I even point those statistics out as measured and as reasonable as I possibly can, the first most basic reflexive binary extreme response to that is, well, he hates marriage. I can't believe a guy like who would talk like that couldn't possibly have he couldn't possibly have a real good marriage. How horrible. How he's so down on marriage. Well, we're gonna find out about that here as we progress through today's topic. So I want to put that out there as well, because a lot of people are going to presume that he's bitter, he's burned, he must be been forced through the divorce machine. No, I haven't. and that I think what I'm about to get into today is going to well, it's going to sound weird to people who are binary, into binary extremes. That seems to be what everybody's into right now. But it's also going to seem weird coming from a guy who has had for almost just coming up here and within 1 month, for 25 years, what most guys would equate as an ideal marriage. And I feel pretty confident in saying that. I'm gloss myself, but I feel pretty confident in saying that. I've done pretty well for myself. I've done pretty well for my family. Like I said, I've got a fantastic daughter. I've got a fantastic wife. I've got 2 fantastic greyhounds that are sleeping here in the studio today. So I want to put that out there, because there's going to be various people who are going to say, well, if he had a traditional marriage, or he had this kind of marriage, or whatever. It's like, no, I have a traditional marriage. I have a conventional marriage. I have a marriage of the way that marriage ought to be done. Okay. That's where we're at. But again, standard caveat, I'm going to get very critical of marriage today. So keep that in the back of your head while we're working through this video here. So I'm gonna put Andrew back in here, because I want you guys to get an understanding. I'm gonna pick this apart. We're gonna go with this point by point, and I want you to get an idea of just where the conservative / traditional set, where their mindset is at with respect to marriage. I have talked about these issues in past videos and in other episodes, certainly the one about Candace Owens not too long ago. But it wasn't specifically about marriage, and it certainly wasn't specifically about MGTOW. Now, I'm going to defend MGTOW today. Again, don't get your panties in a bunch. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. We're not anybody's enemies. We're not anybody's friends. We're just here looking at the objective facts that are going on in this. So I'm going to continue with this, and we're going to have a look here. Let me put him up. Oh, I got to put him back in the stream. Here we go.
We talked about this with Liz Wheeler, and her answer was, as Milt might have said, her answer was of a higher strain. I'll get back to that in just a minute, what Liz said. This guy says it's absolute trash. His name is Aaron. He says it's absolute trash from Satan, and I'm tired of arguing with people in the comments. Please dissuade them of their delusions. Thank you, Master Clavin, Speaker of Clavin of the House of Clavin, upon which all Clavinites depend for guidance and for wisdom. Okay,
Sounds kind of culty, but maybe that's just me. Let me just throw this out there real quickly. I bring myself up here. Whenever I pick up on sort of religious or Christianese, I feel like it's incumbent upon me to point it out. Again, I'm not. This is not Christian bashing. If that's your religion, fine. If that's not your religion, fine. As I've said in my well, let me put this up here really quickly. In my fourth book, The Rational Male Religion, I get into a lot of these topics that he's about to touch upon right now. Particularly if you have the book and if you've read the book, in the main chapter, that one of the big central chapter of the book is about marriage. In fact, it's even just titled Marriage. And a lot of the things that he's going to get into today, and the misunderstandings and the misappropriations that he's going to get into today with respect to MGTOW and their understanding of marriage, modern contemporary marriage today, this century, 21st century, are all outlined in that book. So there's your plug today. It's actually the first link in the description of this video. So if you haven't picked it up yet, please do, because you will be, I think you will have a much greater appreciation for what I'm going to get into here in just a moment.
Last week I asked Liz Wheeler, I said, I got married, and in getting married, I made a commitment that meant not having other things, but I also got a home, I got someone to take care of me, I got someone who's going to raise my children full time, I got a feminine influence in my life, and a lot of guys feel that they don't get this. Why should a guy get married if all his...
Okay, so this is standard caveat number one, or standard, let's see, comeback, conservative take number one. Again, something I get into in the fourth book, The Rational Male Religion. It is almost always, marriage is almost always understood as transactional from this mindset. It's almost always like, well, what do I get for this? And I think that's where a lot of guys kind of miss the narrative when it comes to the criticisms that comes to MGTOW or comes to anything really, MRAs or even tradcons, when it comes to marriage, because they think it's sort of this like quid pro quo, right? It's what do I get for this? And in that respect, I think it's like that's usually where most guys go to first when they criticize marriage or they criticize modern marriage. It's I'm gonna lose half my stuff, and I think that's a mistake. I'm not saying it's not real. I'm not saying that's not the place to begin, maybe even, but I think it's too easy. It presents. I've had let's see. In the book, I actually had this conversation with Dr. Everett Piper when I was on the Pat Campbell show a few times, and we were discussing the ins and outs of marriage. I took the anti, and I hate to say it, the anti marriage side of the argument or the debate, and he took the pro marriage side. And the first, and I expected this too. The first criticism was, well, it's got to be a two-way street, man. It's got to be, you've got to share this and share that, and if you think you're getting something out of it, then you're just a taker kind of guy. You're just trying to take, right? And that's usually where most MGTOWs start when they criticize marriage, is that it's an all downside risk, and they're right about that. It is an all downside risk right now. But I think it's a mistake to begin right there, because there's this presumption that it should be this sort of equal, even egalitarianism. That's really where this starts. And I think what's funny is most traditional conservatives kind of don't like the idea of egalitarianism so much, although I think maybe that's probably changing when it comes to marriage right now. So, he's saying, I got this, I got the feminine influence, I got a full-time mother for my kids, And so it's predicated on exchange. And if you have seen the videos that I've done about the transactional nature of sex versus the validational nature of sex, now that's from a game, sort of PUA, sort of, intersexual dynamics understanding of the things, but it also applies to long-term relationships, of course. So if your marriage is fundamentally a transactional marriage rather than one that is founded on validation of that other person or the actual genuine desire to be with that person, then yeah, you might have a case with respect to, well, what do I get out of it? Now, of course, what is the standard counter to that is that it is an all downside risk for guys today. It didn't used to be that way. I'm going to explain why it is here in just a second. But again, I get into most of what I'm talking about here in my fourth book, in the marriage chapter that's in the center of it. But I wanted to point this out here early on because a lot of the rationale or the reasoning behind why guys should get married is exchange. It's, I can get this for this. And what most guys who are critical of guys who are critical of marriage will say is, well, you're just take instead of give. And it's when you see articles like how women are frustrated with finding the right guy because they can't find an economically attractive guy, that's founded on the transactional nature of sex, the transactional nature of relationships, and in this case, the transactional nature of marriage. And that's where this begins. So if it is only about what you can get, if it's only about having somebody, mother your children or having a feminine influence, you can get that without marriage. So that's a very weak position to begin from certainly if you are a critic of MGTOW. And it's also kind of a weak position to begin from if you are MGTOW, if you are in fact MGTOW and you're like very anti-marriage. I'm never going to get married. I'm a sworn bachelor. I'm a confirmed bachelor, and I'm going to stay a bachelor for forever, right? Well, when tradcons hear that, they think that it sounds like you're being pissy, right? You're being petulant. You're being this bratty little child, or you haven't grown up enough yet to see the value of marriage. Well, no, in this day and age, in this 21st century, we are better educated about not only the risks of marriage, but also the costs or the investments that we make in the belief that we should be married and that this is what we should think about marriage. So there's that right now. Let's move on a little bit further with this guy.
Going to get is a second income that he wouldn't need if he were alone. And she talked about this in Catholic terms of being a marriage, a taste of the experience of God's love for the church, which is of a high strain. And I actually agree with her that is included in marriage, but it's not really the physical rewards that we were talking about before. I mean, you can have sex without getting married. You can have female company without getting married. What do you get for being married? And a lot of guys feel that because of feminism, they're not getting anything, and they're just being used as a cash cow, essentially, and they feel hard done by.
All right, so let's move back here. Once again, the belief is that the only reason why guys would go their own way, or why guys, let's not even put it in terms of MGTOW right now. He's going to do that more later on here, but let's just take that out of the equation. You just say you're a guy. You don't have to be MGTOW to swear off a marriage. You don't have to be an MRA to see the principles and the sort of injustices, but certainly the imbalances of a gynocentric social order and how it works against men. So when we hear things like, well, I can get it outside of marriage, or guys think that they can get it outside of marriage, what's in it for me? And again, this is where I sort of I don't say locked horns, but I sort of disagreed with Dr. Everett Piper when I had that discussion with him, is that it's sort of this back and forth. What do you get out of it? And I think what's interesting to me is that the rationale for, and he's about to say this later on here in this video, the rationale for guys who are sort of swearing off a marriage right now is, again, they get pissy and they get sort of like, pouty and, I can't find the right woman. That's what we're supposed to, that's the kind of like the gist of the conversation that we're supposed to get. Or those guys are incel losers and they can't really, they wouldn't measure up. They're not good. They're not being chosen by women because they have this bad attitude, and the bad attitude stems from feminism. Or it stems from in this. I've never heard him use the word gynocentrism, but it stems from this feminism. That's really that's what tradcons don't understand the term gynocentrism, but they do understand the term feminism. And he's gonna use this a few other times. It's almost laughable, but the thing is this, is that they think it's a raw deal, and the raw deal is not based on the realities of what marriage has become, which is an unconscionable contract. I will explain to you what that means here in just a moment. But and most MGTOWs, from at least the educated ones anyways, at least the guys who have thought this through or are seeing this on a daily basis, or they can't help but not, it's unignorable, right? They can't help not see this all the time. They're not necessarily just basing their decision on some pissy, give it right woman. It's not just that. It's looking at statistics, and I'm about to present some statistics here in just a moment. But it's also looking at these things that are observable every single day. And it's not just social media; it's the internet. It's seeing it in the hearing it around the water cooler. It's not just not just an online thing, because everybody else is influenced by online. So even when you are out in the open and you're just living your life in real time, you're still listening to opinions that were formed by people who got their information from online. So there is that. But it's not just about, I don't want to lose half my stuff. It's not just about, what do I get out of it? It's about caution. It's about protecting oneself now. It might have been about that before. And that's usually when you're approaching marriage from a transactional perspective, that's usually the only reason that makes sense, right? Well, you guys you're just not ready to sacrifice. You just haven't grown up yet. You just don't realize how edifying an experience, and God wants you to get married, and anything in the book, anything that affirms that belief set is thrown out there to sort of say, well, it's just because you guys just don't want to take you guys are risk averse. Well, yeah, but they're risk averse for a reason. They're right for the wrong they're right for the wrong reason. So let me continue a little bit more.
And my answer to this is that I think that you're confusing feminists with women, which is not to say that feminists are not women. It is to say that women are not necessarily feminists. Life is not Twitter. Life is not Facebook. Life is life. Life is...
All right. I have to stop it here. My bad. I probably should have stopped it later. No, Andrew, all women are feminists. No, Andrew, you, in fact, are a feminist. Candace Owens, in fact, is a feminist. Dennis Prager is a feminist. And what is it? Was it Allie Beth Stuckey? She's a feminist too. As much as they want to say, well, feminists they just look like Laura. Was it Laura? What the hell's her name? I don't even know. The feminists just have purple hair, and they are, they've got under armpit hair, and they look like feminists. That's what a feminist looks like, a villain from a Judge Dredd comic book. That's what they look like, right? No, you're a feminist. I'm a feminist. Everybody right? Anybody who has been born really after, say, like 1965 is a feminist, or they've had, and what I mean by that is they've had feminist ideology in some way influence who they are and into their personalities. That is by design. It has been that way for almost 60 years now. Actually, probably over 60 years now. So when you say, I believe in an egalitarian, equal partnership in marriage, congratulations, you are a feminist. Are you willing to say, let's go and abortion is murder. Let's take murder. We need to remove abortion. Let's overturn Roe v. Wade. The reason why you would even have that as an anti-feminist ideal is because feminism at some point got us to the stage where abortion was safe and legal. That's why. And so your concept, even of the counter to feminism, means that you understand feminism in some way. So yes, when people say, well, not all women are feminists. No, they are. And a lot of the things, and anything you see on TV, anything you see on Marvel, anything you see on Disney, anything you see, even the stuff that you see on the Daily Wire, a lot of that, you don't realize where that influence is coming from. I did a full episode on feminism not too long ago. again, I think I sort of picked apart Candace Owens. So I'll put the link at the end of this video so you guys can go view that. It's a short form video, so it doesn't even take too long. But again, you're a feminist, I'm a feminist, everyone's a feminist in some way, shape, or form. We've had feminist ideology influence the way that we think. Even if you believe in casual sex, even if you have come to the term, or you don't believe in casual sex, right? You've come to terms with who you are as a person, who you are as in your belief set in the 21st century as a result of influences of a feminist ideology of some sort. So until you're ready to say, let's repeal the 19th, or let's make abortion is murder, right? Well, okay, well, if abortion is murder, are you ready to charge all the women who've had abortions with murder one? No, they're not, right? The first thing they will say is, well, the men bear responsibility too. And they're not wrong. But if you're going to call it murder, you got to start with the person who made the decision to murder the child, right? Well, they don't want to talk about that because somewhere along the line, they have some sort of sympathetic, bone in their body as a result of a feminist ideology that found its way into their education at some point during their life, even if they were in grade school. So bear that in mind whenever you hear traditional conservative guys talking about, well, there are some women are feminists and some women aren't. No, they are all feminists. In fact, a lot of guys, even today, who are staunch anti-feminists, still the reason they are is because they had to have an understanding of feminism in order to become anti-feminist. So there you have it.
Something that happens between people in a room together presently in three dimensions. And so a lot of these guys, I think, are living too much on the comment sections and not living enough in life. One of the things that can happen in life is you can tell people what it is you're looking for, what it is you want. You can even do this online with some of the matching things and some of the matching websites. And, there are people out there, as the old saying goes, there's a boy for every girl in the world and a girl for every boy. If what you are saying is women...
Okay, that right there is the soulmate myth. Now we're hearing this from okay, boomer, well, whatever, okay? I want you guys to see this live in real time. This is how the soulmate myth works. This is how guys get one-itis, especially how do tradcon men get one-itis? They believe in the ideal, that there's someone out there for you. There's one boy for every girl. Do you think that that's what they thought? Do you think that that was actually a thing back even 100 years ago, 200 years ago? Do you think you would have heard that? The reason for the soulmate myth, by the way, and this is just sorry about the aside here, but the reason why the soulmate myth is endemic still in our culture today is because of the romantic ideal, first of all, another concept you'll find in my fourth book, Religion. But it has a purpose. There's a latent purpose to the soulmate myth, and that latent purpose is socially enforced monogamy. And when we remove women's dependence upon men for provisioning, protection, the beta buck side of hypergamy, with a protection, provisioning, and parental investment. When you remove that, or you make that optional, even just make that optional, how do you keep the guys invested in monogamy? Well, you've got to do it on the mythological, almost metaphorical truth basis of the woo-woo magical thinking base. How do you do that? Well, you inculcate that in generation after generation of guys to believe exactly what he just said. There's one boy for every girl. There's someone out there for everyone. And that right there is probably one of the reasons why it is the very first chapter in the first book, in my first book, The Rational Male. One-itis, the fallacy of the one. What is it? There is no one. There are some good ones and there are some bad ones, but there is no one. And when you approach it from that perspective, it's much healthier than saying, oh, well, she's your soulmate. There's only one of them out there for you, preordained before birth, blah, 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 blah. Women fall into that trap too. We're not going to excuse them out of that as well. But that has a latent purpose, and the latent purpose is to get guys to still buy into an old order way of thinking when it comes to marriage and when it comes to forming families and when it comes to forming relationships and everything else that goes along with that. You can't get guys to sign on to an unconscionable contract unless you in some way find a way to gaslight them into believing that this is what they should do. This is the right thing to do. And even if it's not from a religious perspective, we can make it from a kind of a quasi-religious perspective, which is the romantic ideal. Finding true love That's the religion. There is, and again, once again, in where is it? Let me put this on here. In my fourth book, Religion, that's what I talk about. It is, I name a chapter in there, love is God, not God is love. Because we've made love a God. We've made love this ephemeral ideal that we have to live up to. So anything is okay as long as love wins. You'll hear that from homosexuals. You'll hear that from the woke. You'll hear that from transgender activists. What does it matter as long as they love each other? Love is the highest ideal. And that same highest ideal is used not just by the woke, but also by traditional conservatives. Well, our romantic love justifies our relationship rather than our relationship justifies our romantic love. Again, I can't get into too much detail in that, but you will find it written down in book 4. Andrew, if you have not picked up book 4, I think that's probably the best place for you to start with when it comes to the rational male stuff. Let's continue.
Are what feminists portray them as, then I think you're being very foolish. I think that is foolishness. Most women are, like I said, they're looking for something that could be very much like what you're looking for. And maybe it's if you're going out with people who are shallow, who are greedy, that may be on you. I mean, I think it's a little bit juvenile to be basically controlled by a media image of what women are. You are letting the left, which runs Hollywood, which runs the media, which even runs social media, you are letting them create your picture of who women are every day.
Okay. Once again, here we go. A lot of guys, a lot of MGTOWs are going to watch this video because they saw the thumbnail or whatever else. Are going to say, "Oh, well, this is classic shaming tactics, right? It's all your fault that you can't find the right woman." It's not. It's not shaming tactics. It's only shaming tactics if the guy knows it's BS and he's throwing it out there anyway. That's when it's shaming. He actually believes this. Now you can say, well, he's old, he's a boomer. By the way, his wife is, what's her last name? Ellen Flanagan. Doesn't even have his last name. So that ought to tell you something right there. Also, Candace Owens, when are you going to change your last name to your husband's last name? Again, let's talk about how we're not feminists. A feminist ideal, not taking your man's last name. Hell, make him take your last name. Why is that? That sounds very feminist to me. Now, I've done videos about women assuming your surname, your last name. And not too long ago, actually, about 2 weeks ago, I did that. Have a look at that video and you'll understand why I'm critical of that. But again, there you have it, evidence of feminism, even within the traditional conservative sort of mindset or the belief anyways. But this guy genuinely believes this. It's not just, well, that might be on you. You might just not be the kind of guy that these girls want to get with. Well, of course you're not, because you're looking at what's going on. It's unignorable online. You can say, well, you've been spending too much time online. Okay, what am I supposed to do? Stick my head in the sand? Not be educated, not understand this, not observe what's been going on for, well, certainly the last 21 years, if not the last 61 years. What are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to be ignorant? Are you supposed to say, well, ignorance bliss, and if I don't know about it, then maybe things will work out for me? I wish that marriage could work for, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, I have a really great marriage, and I really wish that it could be something that guys could have for themselves. I wish I had I wish I had a formula for you. I wish I had a template for you guys to all have a successful, happy, loving, sex-filled, joy-filled, marriage, whatever you want to call it. Be blessed, right? I wish that could happen. But in modern times, certainly in the 21st century, if not since really the 1970s, it's been a downhill battle for marriage. And I'm going to explain to you something statistically here right after this video is done, just so that we are all on the same page here, Andrew Klavan. But it's not just these guys not figuring. In fact, if anything, it's because they figured it out on their own. They already can see this. They're not doing it because they're bitter. They're not doing it. Well, maybe they're bitter. Maybe they are burned. Maybe they have a right to be burned. I don't know. But I would say by and large, even if you're not MGTOW, you eschew marriage, right? You turn down marriage. It doesn't necessarily have to be because you got burned. It might simply be the most pragmatic, logistical thing that decision that a guy can make in his life. right now. Again, I am not against marriage. I am against the way we do it now. And you know who screwed that up? Tradcons and wokesies and leftists and left-wing, right-wing. Everybody has been involved in this. It is not on just one side. It's not the Hollywood, they screwed everything up for us. It's not because, it's not because of porn, not just because of pornography. It's not just because of Hollywood. It's not just because of these things. It's not just because of feminism. It's the whole enchilada, including you, including traditional conservatism. The reason for that is because we can't get stuck out and put it in gear, man. We're stuck in neutral and we can't get it into gear. And the wheel will never get it into gear until we see the cold, hard facts that I'm going to present to you here in just a moment.
I see women who are absolutely devoted to their husbands and their families and who bring that incredibly invigorating and life-giving feminine influence into the lives of their husbands. I don't know why you should surrender the search for that simply because you're being told that it doesn't exist and simply because you met people who are shallow and selfish. Maybe, I always say this to women when they tell me I can't find Mr. Right. I always say, are you Mr. Right? And I think the same answer would go to some of these MGTOW guys that say, well, if you're meeting people who are shallow and selfish, what about you? What are you putting out there that attracts these shallow, selfish people instead of deep people who want the kind of deep relationship you pretend to be looking for?
Okay. Most MGTOWs are not looking for that deep relationship. Okay. This is very Pollyanna idealistic. Most MGTOWs are walk away from marriage because it's the most pragmatic decision that they can make. It just simply doesn't make sense to get married. I don't know how you resolve that problem. I've said in the past, and I still believe this, men and women are better together than we are apart. You have to find some way to bring both the parties back to the table, right? And you're not going to do it with this. It's because of what do you really want? What's your dreams? What's your hopes? Hope is not, especially in the 21st century. Hope is not a strategy. You'll hear that from me. You'll hear that from all kinds of other people as well. And it's not a strategy because it's not that they're spending too much time online. It's not, and granted they are, but it's not. That's not the reason. It's not because guys are commiserating. That's the result. That's the product of this, of the realities, let's just say, of the sexual marketplace being in their face 24/7, whether they're online or they're not. Once you put the red pill lens on, you don't take the glasses off. You don't get to listen to music the same way. You don't get to watch movies or read books or we even have conversations about intersexual dynamics anyways, in the same way that you used to. You've been unplugged from the matrix and there's no going back once you have been. And more guys, even if as I said before, even if you remove all the Rollo Tomasis and you remove all the Rich Coopers and the Ryans and whoever else, you just erase the red pill tomorrow, you're still going to be dealing with this because it is unignorable. It's not because guys have said, oh, hey, we're all going to just, band together and form this coalition so women will shape up because we really, deep down in our heart of hearts and the still small voice says, oh, we really want to be married, but we can't. That's not what it's about. Maybe they do. I think that most guys would really love to have a great relationship and would love to have a loving feminine energy, whatever the energy you want to call it, crap. Maybe that's what they desire, but what prevents them from that is not because they're like, oh, I just don't want to do the work. That's not necessarily where it begins. Yeah, they don't want to do the work, but that's not where it begins. It begins in a practical assessment of an unconscionable contract. And that's what marriage has become, is an unconscionable contract. Now, what is an unconscionable contract? I'm about to read to you the description of that. I got it. It's kind of a boring website here, but I'm going to read this. This is from legalmatch.com. What is an unconscionable contract? An unconscionable contract is a contract that is so severely one-sided and unfair to one of the parties that it is deemed to be unenforceable under law. Unconscionability in contract law means that the contract is one that leaves one of the parties with no real meaningful choice, typically due to significant differences in bargaining power between the parties to the contract. One of the main characteristics of the unconscionable contracts is that one of the parties signed the contract in a situation that involved pressure, Who's doing the pressuring, huh? Lack of information, or because they were misled. If a lawsuit is filed and the court finds that the contract is unconscionable, the contract will typically be declared void. If a contract is declared void, there is no damages awarded or specific performances ordered, but instead the parties will be released from their original contract obligations. An unconscionable contract is also a type of abusive contract. Abusive contracts are illegal and unfair to one of the parties. These types of contracts are void under the law and are not enforceable. An unconscionable contract, abusive contract is a contract that is so one-sided it would be unjust for one of the parties to be required to perform their duties under that contract. The majority of abusive contracts are deemed unconscionable due to unequal bargaining power between the parties due to one party's lack of knowledge or experience or resources. So there you have it. Now, why am I putting this out there? Again, this is I'm actually quoting from the Rational Male, Book 4, Religion. Marriage has been likened today, anyways, 21st century marriage has been likened to an unconscionable contract, meaning that were you to know all of the stipulations, were you to know everything, had you not been misled, had you not been pressured into it, you would not, of sound mind, would not enter into that contract, and therefore it is null and void. I am looking forward to the day when some savvy, smart, guy is going to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to get a divorce, but I'm going to get an annulment. And it's going to be based on the fact that this was an unconscionable contract. This marriage certificate, this marriage contract was an unconscionable contract, because that's where we've kind of come, right? I mean, that's where the practicality of it leads. It is an all downside risk for men. When you look at the statistics, when you look at people say, oh, I want to lose half my stuff. It's not just that. It's destruction of families.